Hello, everyone, and welcome to Irfan's session. He will be talking about if Web5 is a game changer for the privacy-first world. Do take the questions on the right in the chat to ask any questions that you have, and if you like what he's saying, do support by sending out any emoticons that you like here. Okay, thanks.
Hi, Manav. Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking time out on a Friday afternoon to just basically share thoughts on where this whole thing is headed. When Manav reached out to me and he said, I need to share my thoughts on Web5. I was just scratching my head thinking we're barely able to handle Web3, and now we got Web5 coming. So where's all this headed, right? But it's important to take a step back, and I think Akshay rightly pointed out that the metaverse is definitely an immersive version of the internet, and I think that's beautifully put, right? um, for me personally, when someone basically says the metaverse, it directly invokes the matrix for me, right? I mean, that's for me, that's what the matrix that's what it is. I mean, we're at the initial stages of what the matrix actually is, to be able to, and I don't know, probably Elon Musk's Neuralink would probably plug into that, and you'd be able to download kung fu software into your mind, and then you'd be able to, like, do all kinds of crazy things in the metaverse. I don't know how it's gonna pan out, right? But yeah, I mean, it's really interested where I feel we're headed. I could talk all day about this, but I'm gonna try and restrict this discussion to Web5 and basically the privacy side of things, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, Web5, right? So Jack Dorsey recently announced his new project, um, where he's essentially saying that he wants to take the best parts of Web 2 and the best parts of Web 3, and kind of bring them together onto a new sort of paradigm shift, right? But the question arises that why is that happening? I mean, forget about the buzzwords, forget about Web 2, Web 3, Web 5. Why is that happening, right? What is the need? Why is he saying these things, right? So it's important to take a step back and try to understand the evolution of how this technology has emerged and how it's got to Web 5, right? um, in a sense that if you take a look at Web 1, which was like back in the late 80s, early 90s, when the internet really started, you'd have this static sort of HTML where you'd kind of post information, and on a BBS, or probably even or on an internet server, if you were rich at the time, and people would just come and view it, right? Crossing into the 2000s, we started seeing the emergence of Web 2, where people would sort of interact with each other online with Facebook and social media and so on and so forth, right? Of course, now in the last 10 years, we've seen this growth of Web 3, which you all are clearly familiar with, of the decentralized web, right? Um, but there is something fundamentally broken in all these three paradigms of how the technology has evolved, right? In essence, you could probably say that Web 1 was very entity focused. So probably a lot of government institutions run that space, and it was all the data and all the information and everything was focused around them and what they wanted to do and how they want to run things, right? And they didn't really care about what other people wanted, or the users wanted, for that matter. As we evolved into the Web 2 space, we started seeing that even the applications started becoming this powerhouse. So you had all the Googles and the Facebooks and Instagrams of this world who are becoming these powerhouses of data, and they were basically collecting all this information. And then again, in both the cases, in one and two, the users who are actually out there using and contributing and creating data and participating and so on, we have no say in how our data is managed. And how our data is being used, how it's being monetized, and in fact, we're not even in the discussion. You know what I mean? So where does that leave us, right? And this basically poses as a fantastic opportunity in that sense that um, building out and we'll get to the metaverse side of things, right? Building out identity systems um, that can be sort of easily integrated into Web 2 and Web 3 environments. Doesn't matter what the environment is, right? And that whole paradigm is driven. It's driven by the user. It's not driven by the governments. It's not driven by applications. It's not driven by public and private keys, but it's driven by the user, right? The user decides what kind of information to be released to whom, for how long, selective disclosureship. Um, so all these kind of all these kind of, I don't want to call them features, but these kind of principles have to evolve into a way that um, we are able to survive as a community, right? So the biggest problem in Web3 right now is, of course, there is exponential growth, right? But there is two facets to it, right? It's growing fast, but at the same time, it's not growing fast enough. It's not able to achieve that critical mass because of all these problems with the wallets and all the hacks and early stage DeFi DeFi protocols. We all know the Terra fiasco, what happened with Celsius, and now recently Volt in India. So there has to be a balance, right? In the sense that all these scams are happening, and this is why the government is getting pissed off and saying that, hey, you I don't know what the hell are you guys are doing, but you've crossed like $3 trillion, and we don't even know who's dealing in these $3 trillion. We all have guesses because we know that the Three Arrows Capital wallet address is that. So we kind of making a guess, right? He could have easily given the private keys to someone else, and that wallet is not his anymore, right? So my view on this is that you have this fantastic technology on one side, which is Web 2, where you have no control over your data and everyone's invading into your privacy. And now you have Web 3, which is completely the stark opposite, where there is no form of identity, right? There is no form. So when you're growing at this space, and then so much value is taken, like $3 trillion have been wiped out of the crypto ecosystem, the governments are going to get involved because the people's money is getting wiped out. Where is that money going, right? They want to get involved. They want to know where it's going, who's doing all this stuff. At the same time, keeping Web3 principles in mind, we want to make sure that, fine, we need to give the government this kind of information, but we want to maintain our privacy. That's the point, right? So I don't mind giving you my house address. I don't mind sharing with you my age, but you don't need to know, what my blood group is, or you don't need to know what kind of car I'm driving. So that's the kind of evolution that's going to happen in Web 5, right? That the user gets to decide in which direction that conversation is going to go, rather than the government dictating, oh, I need this, you got to show me this, you got to give me that. And even very very simple things like, if you want to enter a nightclub, or if you want to watch porn, why do you have to give away so much of your personal information? Like, you know what I mean? You just want to be like, okay, are you above 18 or not, right? So that's where the whole zero knowledge proof and selective disclosure and so on. So yeah, that's in a nutshell how the whole paradigm is basically shifting towards Web 5. Just to touch a bit upon the technical aspects of things. So at Hypersign, I mean, we've been talking about this layer since 2017, 2018, that we've seen how Web 2 has evolved. We've seen how Web 3 is moving. There is no identity. And we want to build out something that is friendly for governments, that is very easy to use for people like you and me, and secure at the same time. And we're not bogged down with all these mnemonics and private keys and encryption and so on. Most users, they don't care about this. They just want a good user experience, simple to use, and not get hacked in the process, right? So Web 5 is essentially talking about DIDs, which is decentralized identifiers. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but you want to think about DIDs as like a decentralized identifier, essentially, which is on a public network. And on that DID, you have all your public keys. You can even manage your private keys depending on what the architecture is, depending on who's designed it. You can also link that same thing to verifiable credentials. Now you have soul-backed tokens, which Vitalik has been so eloquent about. So the whole point is that now people are moving towards trying to build out a system where identity is now becoming part of this equation, right? So I'm gonna close here, right? Just the last few words. So how we envision at Hypersign this whole discussion moving forward, that yes, we need some form of identity, some form of selective disclosure, some form of security, some form of simplicity brought to this madness of Web3. But at the same time, it has to be decentralized, because that's the way things are headed, right? So the Hypersign infrastructure basically boasts that using the DID infrastructure, which is what the resolver and infra that we are building, you will be able to rapidly manage your private and public keys. So right now, imagine you want to imagine in MetaMask how you change your chains from BSC to Ethereum and so on. But the problem is, if you change your browser or if you change your device, you cannot, because your keys are in the wallet if you're in the browser. So that's the kind of problem we're solving, that you'll be able to swap out those keys. You'll be able to have your wallet wherever you go. You can load it up on different browsers. You will not be locked up with, just stuck on that one browser with MetaMask. Plus dealing with verifiable credentials, linking that with soul-backed tokens. And of course, all of this is residing on decentralized web nodes. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share. I mean, we can talk a lot more in detail about this. If someone is interested, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope I did not bore you. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Irfan. There are a couple of questions people are asking if you can explain about.
Yeah, sure. I'll try.
Yeah. So they are asking. This is Sarthak. I'm a lawyer. I just wanted to ask, when it comes to storing data in Web 3.0, which is going to be in decentralized form, how will intermediaries like Facebook, Google will have access to our personal data?
Um, yeah. So that's an interesting question. I don't know if Zuckerberg is actually interested in Web3. You know what I mean? He's probably gonna create his own version of the metaverse, in the sense that he's gonna probably want to own everything, including your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts. But that's where we come in the sense that as a Web3 community, you want to build out a metaverse that does not belong to one person or two persons or even a consortia. It has to be an open network, and you should be. And this is one of the areas where Hypersign is focused on immensely, is where we're researching on how do you move identities from the metaverses. So all your tokens, all your weapons, all your scores. So all these are your identifiers, right? So how do you free yourself from the clutches of Zuckerberg, right? How do you get out from one and into another, truly making it an open space, right? So I don't know what Zuckerberg and Google think about this, but I wouldn't depend on them too much for an open system.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think so a couple of other questions have already been answered. People had doubts about what Web 5 is and where Web 4 has gone, but they have already
Where
been.
Web 4 has gone? I don't know, man. I don't know. I think Snoop Dogg even says he's building Web 69, but whatever, man. Don't get hung up on all these buzzwords.
In this space, I think so everybody is, building something or the other when
Yeah,
it
and
comes
they
to.
just love buzzwords. You know what I mean? So don't get too caught up on that. Like,
That's true. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we'll be soon starting with our panel discussion. Thank you,
thanks,
Irfan.
Manav. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Stay tuned, guys.
Okay.